Hey everybody, hope you're doing well out there. This morning I wanted to talk about RV safety along the lines of the fire extinguishers, your propane detector, your CO detector, and smoke detector. So recently I've updated and upgraded all of my safety devices in the camper. Show you what some of my ideas are on what you should have. All right, so the first thing I did was I updated all my fire extinguishers in the camper. I've got a few. I don't know if you can see that one down there. There's a little bit better view of it. I mounted it down here right when you walk in the entry door on this bulkhead here. The original fire extinguisher was mounted down there in that little tray. It was down, below charge years and years ago, and I've just been using these little single-use ones and mounted my little charge monitor there for my solar and stuff. But so I just went ahead and replaced this one. It is the Kidde Auto Marine Fire Extinguisher. So it's the flammable liquids and electrical. It's got the 6-year life on it, and you just want to go through and make sure that on your gauge that you're up in the green, that everything's charged. So that's the cool thing about these. It's got the gauge. It's real easy to read, and tells you when you get down into the empty or needs to be recharged. So got that one, and I mounted one up there on the side wall, on the side of the wardrobe there, just in case we're up here sleeping and there's something that I can't get to this one down here. I've got that one to fire away if there happens to be anything. This one is flammable liquids, electrical, and wood. So then I upgraded my smoke alarm. So this is one of those first alert smoke alarms. Most of the new ones have the 10-year life battery, which I think it's great. You don't have to fuss around with a 9-volt battery or AA's or whatever the old ones used to be, and you can trust that one to be good for 10 years. They're guaranteed for 10 years. Just test them a few times a year. I usually test mine 4 times a year, so once every season, just test it out and make sure that you've got your tone. And then the next thing was the propane leak detector, and I replaced this a couple of months ago. The old one, that came with the camper, they have a shelf life or a life to them, and you really need to look at the date. You can pull them out, and it's got a date code on it, and they're only good for about 7 years. And this is a 2003 camper, and it was done long ago. And there was another one mounted in here, a separate type, just battery operated, but I wanted to have one that was hardwired into this 12-volt system, but also had a battery backup. So this is what I got. So this is the original. These, just about every RV manufactured from the 80s until the early 2000s had that same one. And I just pulled that out, pulled the leads off, and mounted this guy, which is the Atwood model. And I'll post the link in the description below of which one this is. And it's hardwired, plus it has a battery backup, so that's pretty cool. And of course you got your test, and it'll go through its thing to check the air quality and make sure it's all okay. If it's good, it'll turn green like it just did. So pretty happy with that. Obviously, really important thing to have. And you need to mount these down low because propane obviously sinks down. It's heavier than air, so you mount those down low, usually where your original one was mounted. So that's the Atwood propane the gas detector. All right, so then up in the bed area, excuse the mess, I mounted the new the CO detector. So we've got, this is the first alert model 710, so 00710, and this one's cool. It's got it's digital, so you can, it's got a little light on it too, so you can push the button and do your test for your parts per million, and obviously if you've got anything, it'll show up here. And there's a limit to what how many parts per million that you're supposed to have, you know, up to a certain amount is safe. And so along with that, I also mounted a fire extinguisher in the cab of the truck, and you know, that's just nice to have. It's easily accessible right on the driver's side behind the back seat. All right, so on the passenger side behind the rear seat, I just mounted it right there. And I thought about mounting one down there or on the side wall, actually on the driver's side, on the side pillar there. But you know, it gets in the way of the seat belt, and the kids and the dogs ride back here, and I didn't want it to be in the way and, you know, get knocked a few times and strip the mounting screws out. So before, we had fire extinguisher mounted in this side compartment, and just like now, this is locked. I've got this compartment locked, and a lot of times when we're on the road, because we've been parked in a, you know, a public parking lot, or you know, we've gotten out to, you know, sightsee somewhere, and I lock this compartment. If there's a fire and I've forgotten to unlock this compartment, it's going to be really hard to get to this little fire extinguisher that I had mounted in here. So that's one of the reasons, well, it's really the main reason why I moved it to the cab of the truck. So and also obviously inside the RV, this is where the dinette is, and there's access to that fire. There was access to that fire extinguisher when we had it mounted down here through the underneath the dinette. But again, you know, we have a bunch of stuff stored in here, like chairs. If that's shifted, it's hard to get to. Every second counts when you've got a fire. So again, knowing where it's at and then having it easily accessible is key. So you'll want to know what type of fire extinguisher that you have mounted in your automobile or the cab of your truck and in your RV, because there's different types that do different things. There are some that won't work on flammable liquids, but they will work on, you know, wood or, you know, paper, stuff like that. There's types that'll work on electrical that won't work on flammable liquids. So make sure that you get the right one, and you know, they pretty much always state right on the box what it's used for. So like on this one, it says for use on fires involving flammable liquids and electrical equipment. And on the one that I mounted up there, it's for flammable liquids, electrical equipment, plus wood. And you know, that obviously having something is better than nothing, but it's best to have the right ones mounted in the locations that you need. So, you know, in the kitchen, I've got that one right there, flammable liquids, grease, fuels, you know, propane, things like that. It's also, you know, really important to know where your shut-off valves are. Obviously, if you're an RV owner, you're going to know where your propane tanks are, because you get them filled periodically. So you know that your shut-off valves are out there. I've got a fire extinguisher mounted, you know, close access to the door. So if there's something going on inside the camper, I can open the door and reach this one down here and extinguish anything that you know, might be ablaze. Yeah, over here on the side, I know I've got my propane and got the valve there. You know, obviously the main tank valves, you can keep those shut off when you're driving, and know that that's where your shut off valves are when you have if you happen to have a you know, a fire of some sort. It doesn't matter what kind of fire, even if it's a grease fire or something like that on the stove, you know, wood fire, or you know, whatever happens to be. Make sure that these propane tanks get shut off if they're not shut off already. So also they there's a couple of companies that make those really small canned air, size fire extinguishers that are just in an aerosol can. They're, only about 6-8 inches tall. And, those are okay to have just on hand so you can get to your larger extinguisher. Or if it's just a small, fire that you've got a couple of those handy. The great thing about those, you can keep them in your center console of your vehicle or in the glove box, in the side door compartment, just so they're easily accessible. And I think that's the most important part, is having your fire extinguishers in very accessible locations. So, and make sure that everybody knows where they are. So, when you go through and do your checks, make sure that your family members, your kids, and anybody else that's in the camper with you knows exactly where the fire extinguishers are located and what they're used for. So that's really all I have today. A lot of people might think this is overkill, having so many fire extinguishers around, but I've got places where I can mount them. I feel comfortable having them in these locations. So, I've got one toward the entry door, and I've got one up in the sleeping area, and one in the cab of the truck. I think that's, that covers the areas that I'll need one if something were to happen, an unfortunate situation where we had a fire or something like that. So, or if you're on the road and somebody's on the side of the road and they've got a fire, you can really quickly help them extinguish anything that might need to be extinguished, as long as you're safe about it. So thanks everybody for watching. I really appreciate it. I don't know if you noticed, we've finally hit 1,000 subscribers, so thanks everybody. I really appreciate it. I'm going to try to get some more videos up, some educational content on RVs, and obviously some more travel videos. We've got a couple camping trips planned here to the coast, and then just around some BLM campgrounds around my area here in Northern California. And then this summer we're doing our college tour for my oldest daughter, so we're going to go and take the truck camper and hit a few campgrounds along the California coast and up into Oregon and stuff like that. So that'll be fun to do. Anyway, thanks again. I really appreciate it. If you haven't already subscribed, hit that subscribe button, and more to come. We'll see you on the next one. Later.